something that all of the citizens and residents of Lake Oswego and the surrounding areas can take a great deal of pride in. It has been the #1 rated library in Oregon for several years in a row and is recognized nationally. It is a well-loved and well-used institution. It became apparent almost from the day it opened many years ago that it was being, it had a capacity challenge.
Mm-hmm.
And the demand is there, and they've made several trips up the mountain to try and get a new library.
Mm-hmm.
The current proposal that's going forward is for a possible library, and I should emphasize the word possible because no final decision has been made, but at the intersection of First and B in downtown Lake Oswego. That would move it a little closer to the downtown area and provide the vitality of people coming and going. It would, excuse me, it would provide additional parking, which is needed.
Mm-hmm.
You also have it closer to the bus lines. And you take the current library out of a residential neighborhood and provide an opportunity for that current library location to go back to some kind of, whether it's homes of a single-family nature, townhouses, condominiums, but it provides for that opportunity to be back in residential again.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me.
Mm-hmm.
And so that conversation's occurring. And that also comes back, there are always more requests for things than there are resources available.
Correct.
And trying to balance that. But the possibility of a new library, I think, is something that is desired by the community, and certainly something that I can would like to and plan on working toward bringing that to fruition, hopefully in my either 4 or 8-year term of office that I have the opportunity to serve in.
Okay, so you're definitely for a new library.
I think a new library makes a great deal of sense. It has to be placed in context of the other needs of the community.
Yeah.
For example, we have a maintenance facility which is in dire need of either upgrading or replacement, and I don't have to consider the fact that if you don't have a maintenance facility to provide the opportunity and the ability to take care of all of our existing facilities throughout the city,
mm-hmm.
that may not make sense to put that one off and have a library ranking ahead of that. So it's always a question of trying to provide a structure and a format for ranking and identifying what's important and what's going to have to be put off. But I believe that, having said that, we have the opportunity, subject to a series of assumptions, to provide both for a new library and the new maintenance facility.
Okay. One of the questions we discussed previously is, do you feel that the city establishes priorities in the budget?
We have a city that, as collectively, has high expectations, and that's not a bad thing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, actually, I think that's a very good thing for our citizens to have high expectations. The challenge that goes with that is that the natural inclination is to always say yes. We will do that. And I believe that for any project that you add, you have to say, okay, if we're going to do this, we're not going to do that. One small example in the challenge of establishing priorities.
Mm-hmm.
Last year, there was a request which came before the City Council for the addition of a second dog park. Okay. There is a very nice dog park already in place. It's well used. And there was a lot of conversation about adding a second dog park. Now, in the scheme of things, a dog park might seem, gosh, a dog park when you've got sewer and water you're trying to take care of. Why are we talking about, or parks that aren't maintained? Why are we talking about another dog park?
Right.
Okay. But, and that's, gosh, that's a valid point.
People are passionate about their dogs.
Oh, they love and I had dogs as a kid, growing up, and they're wonderful, wonderful pets, and they help make a wonderful community.
Yeah.
But if you're going to do another dog park, the conversation did not occur of saying, wait, if we do a dog park, it's going to take time, it's going to take effort, it's going to take money.
Yep.
What do we not do?
Mm-hmm.
We have a very good city staff. They work very hard. and they want to do their best to be accommodating to the citizens. So if they are working at capacity or very close to it, and you ask them to do something else, well, that means that something else has to come off.
Right.
That dialogue and conversation has not occurred. I'm looking forward to being a significant part of that conversation for any project, new project that comes before the City Council, to ask to my fellow council members in particular, and to speak to the general public, the citizens of Lake Oswego in general, that says, all right, we can't do everything. What are we not going to do? And what are the reasons for what we're doing and what we're not doing? And I think we can do a much better job of formalizing that.
Great. Okay. Now, the other question that I wanted to ask you is, what can the city do to attract and retain families and seniors? Through this recession, there's a large change everywhere in the city, but Lake Oswego specifically, how do you attract the families and the seniors that you want to Lake Oswego itself?
You bet. It's an excellent question. And books have been written about that. Okay. And consultants make an excellent living going to communities, not only in Oregon, but all over the country, talking about, how do you provide for aging in place is one example. How do you provide for young families and the kids that they bring to schools, which add vibrancy to the community. I start from a larger context by saying families and people have choices as to where they wish to live. They can live, anywhere in the Portland metropolitan area, or they can move to another state. They have control over that. As we age, and the entire country as a whole is aging, as well as our local community, we adopt our lifestyles to that aging. We adopt our lifestyles and what we choose to do based upon changes in our economic circumstances. When you, for example, a family that had both parents working, they come to retirement, their income then becomes more of a fixed income, they may modify the things that they do. Excuse me. They have control over that. You can make a choice as to where you shop, what you purchase. What they don't have control over is the cost of government. And cost of government, you hear that phrase, oh my gosh, cost of government. That's a very vague, nebulous sort of statement.
Right.
But so let's try and, I call it, drill down as to what is meant by that.
Okay.
You have the two major elements of the cost of government, which is to the citizens, are your water and sewer bills and other utility bills, and then your property taxes.
Right.
And the property taxes within Oregon go up by 3% each year based upon the property tax assessed valuation of your home and the businesses that are in the community. And that is fixed by state law. So each year the city has 3% more than last year, plus a little bit more for new construction. There's not a lot of new construction going on right now, so let's just use the 3% number. At the same time, when you look at that, particularly the example of Lake Oswego and with respect to water and sewer, although Portland is very much the same way with its big pipe and the sewer project that's going on, there are dramatic increases in the water rates and the sewer rates to provide an absolutely critically needed service. When in this country, when we turn the faucet on, we want the water to flow. When we use our bathrooms and we flush, we want water to go down.
And we're very blessed because that does happen.
We are very fortunate to that, and certainly within my lifetime, within my parents' lifetime, my grandparents' lifetime, that was not the case throughout much of the country. And so there's no question we are enormously blessed to have that. But the systems in place are aging and are being replaced, and it's a necessary item to do. But you have to pay for it. That's coming through, as I noted, dramatic increases in water and sewer bills. Having said that, and you have to do it. Having said that, when you look at the other side of the equation, the property taxes, which is the largest element of the revenue for the city, the city has control over the rate that it charges per $1,000 of valuation. The city is currently capped at about $5 or so. If you reduce that $5 rate per thousand, which is what the city has control over, you can provide an opportunity for leaving the property taxes that you pay for the city or to the city flat year to year. Saying, we recognize we are taking more money out of your left pocket of your pants for water and sewer. We're going to try and mitigate that by the amount of money that we're going to take out of your right pocket. Now, there's no such thing as a free lunch. If you do that, that means you have to go back on what the programs and services that you're providing by the city, all of which are requested, all of which always have a group or many groups who are advocates for that.
Yeah.
And you have to say, okay, what are we going to do, what are we not going to do, and how do we look at those costs? So those are what I call, it's an extended answer to your question about the cost of government, but it has to be examined in the overall cost, property taxes, water and sewer, balance that against the requested and oftentimes necessary items that we do as a city and say, okay, what is more important at this particular time? I believe at this particular time it is very important to say to the citizens of Lake Oswego that we acknowledge that we are increasing the water and sewer. We can make a good case for the water and sewer rates that are going up. And because of that, and because of the benefits that were provided, we're going to try and mitigate it elsewhere for 1 or 2 or 3 years for some of the other programs of the city, saying, we understand, we can live without this for a while, and therefore we'll be able to hold your property taxes, the city portion of it, flat for 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, and then we'll add them back after we get through the rapid increases in water and sewer rates.
Okay, very good. So one of the other questions is, Lake Oswego going to be part of the high-speed rail that's coming through most of Portland these days? Is that on the books?
It is an item which has been discussed, and I think we should more accurately categorize it as higher speed rail. When I think of high-speed rail, I think of the bullet train in Japan.
Well, we don't have those.
We don't have those, or the TGF.
I'm thinking of the
France.
MAX, but
MAX. No, I don't think anybody would characterize MAX as high-speed rail. If there is somebody who characterizes MAX as high-speed rail, I would like to have a conversation with them.
well, it is compared to the streetcar, but
It is. Yes, it is. That's a fair point. The challenge, the short answer to your question is not for many, many years. The challenge that the city has and that Oregon has with respect to high-speed rail, or is what we think of high-speed rail, and connecting, for example, Vancouver, BC, all the way down to San Diego on a high-speed rail, is that the rail lines and the right-of-ways for that are primarily freight lines. And trying to do the scheduling between high-speed rail on freight lines and the freight traffic and the railroad companies who have the right-of-way.
virtually impossible.
It is, exactly, it is virtually impossible. And so if we are going to move forward as a region, as a country, and I'm just focusing on Lake Oswego.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
Yeah, is that,
we're talking about.
And there, I don't see, at least for now, moving forward with a high-speed rail in Lake Oswego, the connection to Portland, south through the valley. I don't think that's going to happen until we have a serious conversation about, okay, the right-of-way for that. Because other than that, it is an expenditure of funds for a slightly higher speed rail connection, and I think the resources we have can better be used elsewhere.
Great. One of the other things I wanted to talk about for a moment is events like farmers markets. Do you feel that they'd be good or bad for the city of Lake Oswego?
I think events like the farmers market, the other events like that, the tree lighting ceremony that will occur in December, the Festival of the Arts, are all marvelous, wonderful events that provide tremendous value to the community. And the more of those that the city can partner with the arts organizations, with the Chamber of Commerce, with neighborhood groups that are passionately and deeply involved with that, all add to the vitality of